If you look at the overall mortality, what you can see is that it's essentially the same this year as it has been in the previous years. On the CDC website, they have a page where they compare the year-to-date mortality from this year, like from starting at January 1st to the present, to the average of the last 3 years. And I've been monitoring this for weeks and weeks, and essentially it's either a little bit less than that average or a little bit more by a couple of percentage points either way, and it's been hovering. So essentially we have the same exact number of people dying this year as compared to previous years. So that tells me that there's no evidence of a new disease, or at least not a new disease that would cause any deaths, because if it did, we would see a surge in the number of deaths this year compared to previous years. Even Dr. Fauci wrote in a New England Journal of Medicine editorial on February 28th that this COVID pandemic was akin to a seasonal flu, and he listed a 0.1%. So based upon that, I really, can't say that these extreme authoritarian measures that removed our First Amendment rights have anything to do with an illness. There must be some other motivation. Otherwise, why wouldn't we have had these procedures every year related to the flu?
Why is this vaccine being pushed so heavily if the majority of the population will just let their body do what the body is capable of doing and just use their immune system?
Well, vaccines have actually never been demonstrated scientifically to prevent any diseases. So if you look historically at diseases like measles and polio and diphtheria, what you'll see is that the number of cases of those illnesses started to come down almost to their baseline current levels. So in other words, the disease basically disappeared from the population in the United States. And that happened before there was even a vaccine available. Modern vaccines are not even tested with the standard type of trial that all drugs have to go through in order to get FDA approval, which is called a randomized controlled trial, where they have two groups. One they give the drug or therapeutic or vaccine to, and the other they give a placebo to. And if you were doing this with a vaccine trial, the placebo would have to be like an injection of, something inert like just salt water instead of the vaccine constituents. And then you would follow those people out and see, well, between the two groups, did anybody get the disease that the vaccine is supposed to prevent? And then you could compare the two and determine if the vaccine actually worked. Well, they don't do those studies at all for vaccines. There haven't been any studies showing evidence that vaccines prevent disease. So this is simply a shortcut to get vaccines on the market more quickly. And the way that they get approval is just by showing that they give it to somebody and they develop an antibody. But I'll tell you that if you inject any foreign substance into a person, you're going to get antibodies. These vaccines that they're trying to develop at an extremely rapid pace, and now they're starting to be tested, they are a totally different kind of technology from prior vaccines. In the past, vaccines for an alleged viral illness would contain that virus in some form. But in this case, what they're trying to do is take just genetic material that they say is from a virus. In this specific case, they say from the virus they've called SARS-CoV-2, which they haven't never isolated. They've just picked out this piece of RNA from it and constructed that into some kind of sequence. And they're saying that they're going to take a gene from that. So like the Moderna vaccine, which may be the most well-known, they are taking supposedly the RNA sequence, but what they're going to do is they're going to inject that and have some mechanism, and there are different technologies that supposedly can achieve this, whereby our own cells take up this foreign genetic material and they are supposed to actually make the protein product. So in other words, we'll have our own cells making virus proteins, and that is somehow supposed to lead to an immune response, which they say, but this is the same exact technology by which they make genetically modified organisms. So I see this as an attempt to make us a genetically modified organism, that this could manipulate the population in some profound way.